Welcome to Bet with Bobano, Wednesday, February 21st. Ian Cameron. It is me flying solo today. Brad Francis will be back next Wednesday. A little busy today, and so he'll be back next Wednesday. And of course, next Wednesday's show, we'll be back to the regular format. We'll break down every NBA game. Today, though, this is going to be a very short show. I'll be on for 10 minutes, 15 minutes here. We'll run through some of the games that I like tonight in college basketball. Yes, there is no NBA tonight. NBA returns from the All-Star break tomorrow, but we will talk a little college basketball. We'll run through some of the games that we like here tonight on this slate. Just in any order, just some games that pique my interest here tonight as far as on the betting slate is concerned. Just rapid fire. Let's start with Western Carolina and Greensboro. This is a game that actually note the start time here, 6 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you're not late to get that bet in if you're going to be involved with this game. Greensboro, 3.5-point home favorites, 138 the total. I like the dog here, Western Carolina. It's a revenge spot for this Catamounts team. They lost earlier this season to Greensboro. I've actually cashed a lot with Greensboro this season, but the fact remains they're only 3-7 against the spread on their home court. Like I said, this was 85-82 for Greensboro at Western Carolina back on January 24th. So you have a dog catching points in revenge and a Western Carolina team that has won 3 of their last 4 games. They've played pretty good basketball of late. They took Furman down to the wire on the road. You just look what they've done on the road. And that's what stands out to me. Last time we saw this team in the road underdog role against what is annually, every year, one of the best teams in this SoCon, Southern Conference, Furman. 4-point dogs. They lost by 3. I think this is a very competitive game. So, to me, I like getting the revenge-minded Western Carolina team getting points. I got plus 4.5. It's dropped since then, but I still like the points there in that game. St. Bonaventure, LaSalle. I don't trust St. Bonaventure on the road. And don't look now, but Fran Dunphy, who's been around the block as a college basketball head coach back to his days with Temple, now here with LaSalle. I mean, they're starting to get better. That was a big-time win for them, beating a very good UMass team. Frank Martin coaching there. They're pretty solid. They win outright as 6-point dogs against UMass. And like I said, with St. Bonaventure on the road, I'm not always trustworthy of this team. Let's not forget they lost to Dayton. They lost to Duquesne. They lost to George Mason on the road in conference play. Their only road win since mid-January was at Fordham, who are quite honestly not a very good team, in my opinion, this season. So laying 6.5 with St. Bonaventure. They are the better team, but, slowly but surely LaSalle's playing a little bit better. I could see this being a tight game, getting 6.5 with LaSalle. I lean over the total as well. I think we're going to see some points in this game. LaSalle's trended over 4 of the last 5. St. Bonaventure, 5 straight overs for them. They've been scoring. The defense, though, has been kind of hit or miss. So I think it's got the elements of a game where we should see some points with the Bonnies and the Explorers. Illinois, Penn State, good Big Ten battle. Illinois, 7.5-point road favorites, 156 the total in this game. This is an interesting spot. Illinois has been rolling for the most part. Look at what Brad Underwood's team has done, 5-1 straight up their last 6 games. The only loss was at Michigan State, 88-80. But other than that, they've been very good. But they're laying a big number here on the road against a Penn State team that, last 2 games have been ugly. They lose at home to Michigan State. They lose at Northwestern, although they do cover the number there. And then they get blown out at Nebraska over the weekend, 68-49. I think this spot sets up nicely, though, for Penn State. It's worth noting with Penn State in this game that this game is going to be on campus. Okay, not the normal place where they play their home games. So it's going to be a little bit of a smaller venue, a little more of an intimate atmosphere. I think it'll be a louder crowd for Penn State as a result of this. I could see this being a tricky little spot here for Illinois. And let's not forget, Illinois has struggled with Penn State. Penn State's covered 4 in a row head-to-head versus Illinois. So they've won 3 straight against Illinois. Illinois' only win in the last 4 meetings was by 5 points in Champaign at home against Penn State. So you look at the last 4 meetings, and we see that Penn State's won 3 of the 4, and the only game Illinois won was by 5 points. And here they are laying 8. And look, I love the way Illinois is playing, but this does feel to me like a situation where Illinois is going to have a game on their hands here against Penn State. So I like the Nittany Lions here getting a healthy number, +8. You're also talking about Nick's onto it in the chat. The home teams in the Big Ten, the home teams in general in college basketball, especially in these home dog spots, short home favorite spots. I mean, VCU was rolling last night or going into that game against UMass, but I still took UMass as a short home favorite in that game because, look, these home courts have really been good, and UMass blew out a VCU team that was playing really good basketball. So I think Penn State can keep this close, in my opinion. I like the idea of getting 7.5, 8 with them in that game. I like Coastal getting points against Georgia State as well. Just rapid fire on a few of these games. Couple of overs that I like: VMI and East Tennessee State. VMI doesn't play any defense; they play fast. Should see points there. Citadel Mercer, same thing. I think we see that game go over the total. I agree with the line move to Mercer as well. 7 is getting a little rich, but I thought where it opened 4.5, 5. Definitely, I was willing to lay the points with Mercer. Citadel, I just don't trust. Mercer has been playing gradually a little bit better here the last calendar month or so. It's not easy to step in front of James Madison, but Marshall could be a little bit live tonight as a home dog. And Marshall, if you're going to bet Marshall at all, you take him at home or you don't take him at all because they have had issues on the road. So that one I would lean to the home dog Marshall over the total as well in that game. Dayton's better than George Mason. That price looks cheap, but I must admit, Dayton, the last few games, they've shown some chinks in the armor. They still have a very strong 21-4 record. But you look at the last few games, they were not that impressive against Fordham. They didn't cover as big home favorites. They were impressive against Duquesne, but on the road, they lost at VCU. They lost at Richmond as favorites. So how will they fare in this game? It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Dayton should win and cover, but there's something about that game that's a little off-putting for me. So only a lean there in that one. I like over in George Washington, St. Joseph's. I think you're going to see pace. I think you're going to see two teams that struggle on the defensive end of the basketball court. And I think that's got all the makings of a high-scoring affair there, GW and St. Joe. Richmond, Rhode Island's a pass. Richmond's the better team. I don't want to lay 5 with them, and I've been burned enough by Rhode Island that enough is enough. Wofford and Chattanooga, lean Wofford and over there. St. John's and Georgetown. Your guess is as good as mine what the hell St. John's is going to do after Rick Pitino ripped into that team over the weekend after that loss to Seton Hall. I mean, do you know, are they going to respond positively? Is it going to be rally the troops, or do they tune Uncle Ricky out? And they are really bothered by that scathing, scorching criticism by Rick Pitino about his team and his players specifically. That's a really tricky game. I'm not rushing to lay 10 with St. John's, but who wants to take Georgetown? I mean, Georgetown has been blown out, eviscerated repeatedly, and it wouldn't totally shock me to see that again here if St. John's is mildly coming with force and intensity here. So that one's a tricky game for me. I'm staying away. I'm kind of leaning to Florida against Alabama. I mean, Alabama's been lethal at home, especially on offense. It's why, and you're going to get it breakneck pace. Florida plays fast with Todd Golden. Alabama always pushes the ball up and down the court with tempo under Nate Oates. That's why the total's as high as it is. I'd be scared to death to take the under in that game, but I'm leaning Florida the more that line climbs. I mean, I like Oklahoma State. They're starting to play better. I mean, Cincinnati has not exactly been getting the job done lately. I've taken Cincinnati in a couple of home run spots, and they have not gotten it done, especially the Iowa State game. They did beat UCF on the road 76-74, but when the hell is the last time Cincinnati's won by like double digits? It's been a while. They've only won 4 of their last 10 games. 3 of the 4 wins were by margins of 4 points or less. And now here is this team laying 10.5 here in this game. So, and look, Oklahoma State, it's a perfect example of one of these teams that was terrible to begin the season. Awful. Nobody wanted to bet them. Nobody should have wanted to bet them because they were that bad. They were getting blown out left and right. Don't look now. Look at these last 4 games. Kansas State, they win as a dog. At Houston, they cover as a dog. At Oklahoma, double-digit dog, lose by 4. BYU, 6-point home dog, they win outright. And wire to wire, they romp BYU over the weekend, 93-83. So I think that's a live road dog there, getting double figures. Oklahoma State against Cincinnati. I like Jacksonville State against Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee is just not as good on the road. It's really that simple. I think now we're starting to see Jacksonville State, another one of these teams that didn't exactly play their best basketball during the course of the season, but starting to get it going a little bit, be competitive. They almost took down a very good Louisiana Tech team in their last game on the road, only lost by 5. I think Ray Harper's bunch wins and covers. Middle Tennessee 1-7 straight up, 1-7 against the spread on the road. It's not what you want to see as far as trusting a team to get the job done away from home. I like Georgia Tech as well as a home dog, +8 against Clemson. I mean, I'm not laying ever that kind of number with Brad Brownell teams. That's not going to happen. Georgia Tech plays their best basketball at home. We saw what they did against Syracuse over the weekend. This Georgia Tech team, 7-6 straight up at home this year, compared to just 2-8 straight up on the road. Like I said, off a nice home win against Syracuse. Really, they've only had one game recently at home where they really shit the bed, and that was Wake Forest. It just feels like a good situation here on Georgia Tech. Clemson is coming off a loss, and usually teams off a loss, I'm not rushing to bet against them, but I think it's too many points to trust Clemson on the road here in this one. What else have we got? Notre Dame, Louisville. I mean, Louisville's favored. I mean, believe it or not, I think you have to take Louisville here. I mean, Notre Dame on the road, 1-7. And look, Louisville, the problem with me taking Louisville here and backing them as favorites is there's been a few times I have taken Louisville and won, but now there's a couple of times I've taken them and I've been burned. The Boston College game on the road, the Pitt game, I thought a great spot to fade Pitt after they beat Virginia. Louisville went to Pitt and they got absolutely trucked over the weekend. I thought that was a great spot for Louisville, and they got absolutely bombed. So I'm not rushing to bet Louisville again, but it kind of feels like they do win this game, and I certainly don't want Notre Dame on the road. So we'll see how that one goes. With all the fiber in my being, I want to take Miami against Duke. It feels like a last stand kind of game for Jimmy Larinaga and the boys. I mean, this team still has Omier, and they've got Nigel Pack, and they've still got a lot of those good players from the Final Four team last year. And to see them just be so bad this year, so disappointing, so underwhelming when they've got, like I said, they've got Omier back, they got Poplar back. They've got, obviously, Nigel Pack, and to see them just not be able to even come close to matching what they did last year is disappointing. And Duke's on fire now. Duke is starting to rev it up. And John Shire last year kind of got this team going February into March, playing their best basketball, peaking at the right time. It's starting to look that way. It's dangerous to me right now betting against Duke, but I kind of want to lean Miami here. +7. They need the game badly. They did give Duke a battle last year. 2 games. Miami won at home 81-59 against Duke. And then in the conference tournament, I believe it was Duke winning, but only by 7. So this has been a decent matchup for Miami. So I am leaning Miami here against the Duke Blue Devils in that game. Furman and Samford. Give me Furman here. You're going to give me Furman a 7.5 point dog. I still think Furman has good basketball. Furman has been certainly challenged in this conference this season. Their supremacy has certainly taken a hit. It's been challenged. They aren't the undisputed number 1 team in this conference anymore. In fact, there are 3 teams right now in the Southern Conference ahead of them. Chattanooga, UNC Greensboro, both of them at 10-4 in the conference. And this team, Stanford, sitting atop the conference at 12-2. So I think Pack is out, which explains the line move. Good call there, Kevin. So that would be tough. But sometimes with the key player out, you rally around them. I'd still lean Miami, but that does hurt them a little bit. Furman's beaten Samford 4 straight times, covered 3 straight times. Furman won earlier this year, 78-64. It is a revenge spot for Samford, but I mean, you're getting a Furman team that is perennially very good in this conference as a dog. It doesn't happen very often, so I would lean to that way, Furman. I like the over in Drake and Belmont, even though it's high at 155.5. Murray State, Southern Illinois, I lean to the Salukis there at home, 4.5. Providence, Xavier, over. I agree with that. Excuse me, that move. Xavier's been a team I bet a lot of overs with this year. For the most part, I've been rewarded. Bradley is starting to show some regression a little bit. I kind of think Missouri State +4 against Bradley and Missouri Valley play could be worth a look. Everyone likes the over with Indiana State Valpo. You're going to get extreme pace. I don't disagree, but the only concern is that total is above 160 now, so it's a pretty high total there. in that one. Rice and UAB, not the greatest of spots for UAB. UAB is playing well. Andy Kennedy's team, is really starting to pick their game up. Right time of the year. They've had some pretty impressive wins, pretty impressive performances in the AAC here in recent games. Of course, we know how they knocked off, a bunch of good teams. North Texas, Florida Atlantic. This UAB team is starting to play really, really well here. The North Texas win, the FAU win. They almost beat SMU on the road. They beat Memphis, at home. So this UAB team has covered 6 straight. It's not easy to go against them. However, they've been rolling along. This is a bit of a flat spot. They play Tulane on the road next. This might be the time to jump off the UAB bandwagon, at least for me. And I've been on UAB quite a bit lately, but I'm not so sure I love them in this spot. Laying doubles in a potential flat spot against Rice here in this game tonight. What's the total in that game? I lean over in that game as well, Rice and UAB. South Florida, UTSA. I mean, this is situational handicapping 101. Tells you to bet UTSA, the Roadrunners. South Florida off the monster win against Florida Atlantic. It was huge. They're on fire. It's just not easy to bet against them, even in a potential bet against spot like this, because they've just been finding ways to continue to win games, continue to cover point spreads. And the one issue here is UTSA someone we could really firmly trust here? Losing home record this year, 6-7. Like I say, South Florida's covered 8 straight. They've been absolutely phenomenal. 8-0-2 against the spread the last 10. So that's tough to go against that. But that still doesn't mean I want to back South Florida coming off the biggest win they've had this season. That was a monster game, a monster win for them early Sunday afternoon against Florida Atlantic. So that's an interesting game there with USF and UTSA. The money's come in on UTSA supremely for situational reasons, but I'm not sure I'll be joining the mob with that. Evansville, Illinois, Chicago, UIC, I lean that way, but I don't love it. Northern Iowa, Illinois State. Northern Iowa on the road, I don't love as much as I love them at home. At home, they're pretty good. Another one of these cases where on the road, it's not so much for Northern Iowa. I would look to Illinois State probably in that game in the Missouri Valley in that one. Although I should point out, Northern Iowa has completely, utterly owned Illinois State. They've won 10 straight in the head-to-head over Illinois State. Look, I mean, I'm going to continue betting against Memphis. It's really not slowed down. I think maybe one game they've covered lately that I was on or against Memphis, and they beat me, but it hasn't happened very often. 1-8 against the point spread in the last 9 games. Yeah, it was the Tulane game at home, and even then they won by 12, barely. Who is Memphis right now to be laying 6.5 to a very good Charlotte team? 9-1 straight up in their last 10 games. Not with my money with Memphis right now. So Charlotte plus 6.5. Very much interested there. Charlotte is one of those teams that early in the season, very slow paced, defensive minded, not the greatest shooting team. They've kind of changed their spots a little bit, played a little faster. The offense is playing as well as it has all year. So it's probably why the over is taking money in that game. Nebraska and Indiana. It's another case where Big Ten home team or pass for me. Indiana's a small home favorite in that game. And Nebraska is another case of a team that on the road is a much different team. So it'll be a lean Indiana in the over there. Georgia Vandy's tough. I mean, pick your poison. It's right where it should be. I don't really trust either of these teams to win. But Vandy at home, I would lean that way. I mean, I've got probably slightly more faith in Vandy at home than I do Georgia on the road in a pick 'em price range there. Tulsa and Wichita State, I lean over there at 147. I probably would lean Tulsa as well. I don't love the game, but I would lean Tulsa as well. Wichita's not a team I'm comfortable with laying a number with. I don't think they've been all that great laying points this year. I remember East Carolina, they lost outright. The one game they did cover as a favorite was UTSA, but this is not a point spread roll they're used to. So we'll see if Tulsa can hang in there. It is worth noting, though, Tulsa did beat Wichita, so this is revenge for Wichita, but I still don't want to lay 7.5 with them. DePaul and Marquette lean over. Kentucky, LSU. I'm on LSU. I mean, how often do we see Kentucky play well after a big win? And that was a huge win, and credit to them. They've had a disappointing stretch since January. Losses to South Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, Gonzaga. But they bounced back. They beat Ole Miss, won and covered. A huge win for them at Auburn, and their defense, which has been awful much of the season, finally showed up. Their best defensive effort of the season, hands down. You go to Auburn and you hold that team to 59 points. That was impressive. But there's something about this spot I don't fully trust Kentucky to bring that level of performance again on the road against LSU with Alabama on deck. This is a sandwich spot. Auburn on the road, Alabama on deck at home on Saturday. And you've got LSU nestled in between, not to mention the fact, LSU's covered 3 in a row head-to-head against Kentucky. And Kentucky's last 2 victories over LSU were by 5 points and by 3 points. Neither of those margins are going to get the job done here tonight if you're going to lay 6.5 with Kentucky. So LSU for me, they're +6, +6.5. And let's give LSU credit. They covered and they almost beat Florida on the road 82-80. They went to South Carolina, the hottest damn team in the SEC going into that game, and they won outright 64-63. So LSU's got it in them, I think, to make this a tough game for Calipari and the Wildcats tonight. Ole Miss, Mississippi State. This is one of those deals where I don't want to lay 6.5 with Mississippi. I'd take the points with Chris Beard and Ole Miss if I had to in that game. Colorado State, New Mexico. Great showdown here in the Mountain West. I'm just trying to see here. Yeah, this is a revenge spot for New Mexico. Colorado State won at home 76-68. New Mexico trying to return the favor here. It's worth noting last year at the pit, New Mexico won 88-69. So I probably have to lean New Mexico. This has been a good situational handicapping conference lately where you get these home teams and they've been winning and they've been covering, and it feels like a New Mexico spot here in this one. Revenge spot. You look at Colorado State on the road, and other than the Fresno State game, they lose by 13 at Nevada on the road. They lose by 3 at Wyoming as 8-point favorites, and then they get drilled by 16 at San Diego State 8 days ago on the road. And I like Nico Medved's team. I like Isaiah Stevens. I like this Colorado State team, but much of the teams and many of the teams in this Mountain West Conference, they have not traveled well. And now you got a New Mexico team, not only in revenge here at home tonight against Colorado State, but they're also off that loss to San Diego State, 81-70 at Viejas Arena in their last game. So I like New Mexico here. It's getting high. It's getting pricey at 7.5 now, but I do agree with the move. I think that game can go over the total here. Those are 2 very good offensive teams. There's going to be pace. I find New Mexico games at home, more often than not, they get the pace they want. They've gone over in 5 straight games, by the way. I know it's been the opposite for Colorado State, but I think I would go over that total there. Pacific Pepperdine's a pass. 2 bad teams. I want nothing to do with either one of them. UNLV and Air Force. I think I'm going to lay the points with UNLV. There's actually a revenge spot, believe it or not, for UNLV. UNLV suffered their worst loss of the season. Not just who they lost to in a pretty bad Air Force team, or at least a way below average Air Force team, but it's the fashion they lost to Air Force. 90-58 at Thomas and Mack, the Thomas and Mack Center in Vegas. They lost by 32 on their home floor to this Air Force team. It was absolutely awful, that game. And it's just amazing that they lost that badly to Air Force. Single worst loss of the season for UNLV. Well, actually, that's debatable, because early in the season in non-conference, they also suffered just a horrendous loss to Southern. It's the very first game of the year. 20.5-point favorites. They lost by 14 to Southern in their very first game of the season. So that was pretty bad too. But now at Air Force, you're getting a reasonable number here, -6. And tell you what, UNLV on the road has actually been solid. They had a good road win at Boise, very good Boise State team. They won outright as underdogs. They won and covered at San Jose State. They won outright as underdogs against New Mexico. Not many teams have gone to the pit and beaten New Mexico this year. Richard Pitino and crew. UNLV somehow did. And then they won their last road game. Didn't cover, but they won their last road game at Fresno State. They've actually been a good road team, UNLV, here in Mountain West Conference play. So that factored in with the 32-point loss revenge that they will try to exact here tonight against this Air Force team. And I think I'm going to look at UNLV there, -6 tonight against Air Force in that game. So there you go. There's my look at the college basketball slate. I guess from the added board, let me see. Not a whole lot. I mean, I'm probably looking at Holy Cross as a home dog against Bucknell. Holy Cross is starting to play a little bit better. I like the over in Charleston Southern Upstate, as well as the over with Asheville and Longwood. It kind of feels like a Longwood spot, but I don't want to go against, to me, I think the team to beat in that conference, that Big South conference with Drew Pember, who seems like he's been there forever. That's a very good Asheville team. So that's what I'd be looking at there. Oh, and Loyola, Maryland has been a nice little moneymaker for me lately. They've been starting to cash some tickets. I think them as a small home dog against Navy might be worth a look as well. So there you go. That's college basketball. It's basically everything I'm either bet or looking at potentially betting here for tonight. Let's go with the best bet, as we always do, to wrap it up. What will we choose? Oh, man, there's a lot to choose from here tonight. A lot of good options, too. Let's see. Yeah, let's take LSU tonight, +6.5 against Kentucky. I think actually I'll give you two. I'll give you that, and I'll give you Oklahoma State +10.5 against Cincinnati. I think that line is just too rich, in my opinion. So Oklahoma State +10.5. Yeah, we'll give you three. Oklahoma State +10.5 against Cincinnati. LSU +6.5 against Kentucky. We'll make it a 3-dog night. I'll also go with Penn State +8 against Illinois. There you go. 3 dogs for best bets from me here for college basketball tonight. All right, my voice is fading, as you can tell. It's a little sore throat we're dealing with, so we're going to wrap this up. We'll be back next Wednesday. Regular show, full-length edition, 4 p.m. Eastern, with Brad Francis joining me as he usually does on Wednesdays, and we'll get back to the regular format. Every game on the NBA card next Wednesday, and we will also talk about a couple of college basketball games as well. So shout out to everyone in the chat. Orange Juice, Octopus, John Prude, Nick, Kevin C., Silver Malco, Sharon, William, Real Deal Prime, everyone else, hit the like button. We appreciate it very much. This is it. Wednesday night, all about college basketball and, of course, NHL. If you want my NHL thoughts, tune into the Ice Guys show every single day for that. I'm Ian Cameron. Enjoy the games and good luck tonight on this college basketball Wednesday night. And I'll be back again on Monday. Actually, Monday and Wednesday we'll have shows again next week. We took Monday off this past week because there was no NBA, but we will be back with Monday and Wednesday shows, 4 p.m. Eastern, for Bet with Bobano. So until next time, bet like Tony Soprano, bet with Bobano, and we'll see you again Monday for another edition of Bet.